to some, color grading is shrouded in mystery. Like ancient secrets from faraway lands, long closely guarded and passed down by the chosen few. But then again, you can watch a bunch of YouTube videos. As the title should say, this is all DJI Pocket 2 footage. I always shoot in Decinelike to get more cinematic results. Every shot was graded in 3 stages. Starting from RAW, basic corrections were made, then I added color, and finally I applied Dehancer Pro. Arguably the best part. And now, a little bit about me and my channel.
Hey there! You have been admitted to the first demonstration of my color grading process. By the way, my name is Scott. I am not a professional. I just color grade to my preferences and from what I have learned over the past 3 years. In the case that you just discovered me, I focus on travel and tourism videos infused with spiritually ambitious history presentations. And I do some basic vlogs too. And I was working on my latest video, a historical vlog about the Agua Caliente Casino and the Indians that built it, when Dehancer reached out to me to demonstrate and help sell their product. So I must be doing something right. All I had to do is make one video. But why stop there? I already posted a rain video featuring their cool plugin, and this is my first in-depth video on their plugin, and expect a few more after this. This time, I'm showing how I bestowed filmic blessings on DJI Pocket 2 footage from my trip. So, let's get into DaVinci Resolve.
First, I went to create a basic node. Then I lowered the lift close to the limit. Then I raised the gamma to compensate. Then I lowered the highlights, which significantly cools the image down, but it also would allow for the increase in contrast that I did next. By turning the basic node off and on, you see the progress that was made. Next, the color node, which I call HSV. HSV is short for Hue Saturation Value. It is a color space that allows you to isolate the saturation channel and allows for a deeper saturation, making the colors appear more dense. I achieved this with the color wheels. There might be other ways to manipulate this, but this is how I learned it. The gain wheel affects the lighter colors, and the gamma wheel affects the darker colors. And honestly, I just really love how HSV looks. Once again, by turning the node off and on, you get to see the progress. And now it is time for Dehancer Pro. The closest match I could find to my DJI Pocket 2 footage was the DJI Mavic Air settings. Then I selected a film stock, which significantly impacts the grade. So I raised the exposure accordingly to balance out the crush from the film stock. Kodak Color Plus 200 had a really vibrant look that worked well with my casino footage. Then I enabled film compression, and I maxed it out. The film print stage is probably the single most dramatic step of the film emulation process. Like it sounds, this option emulates the physical printing of a film negative to paper or a positive film. I opted for Kodak 2383 print film, as a cinematic effect was what I wanted. As with the film stock, I had to raise the exposure to compensate. And I added some color density and tonal contrast. Also, enabling analog range limiter softens the image and improves detail, kind of like film compression. Then I added a little blue to the color head. Then I cooled down the shadows and I warmed up the highlights. Then I added halation. Hey, if halation is good enough for Top Gun, it's good enough for you, which I kept at the default setting. The guidebook states that the default settings are typical of actual film. However, when I added bloom, I lowered the impact to make it more subtle. This is an example of film bloom from Brian De Palma's Dress to Kill. Finally, I enabled film breath, which simulates the changes in exposure, contrast, and/or color that a film would have from slight movements while running through a printer or projector. In short, it adds a cool flicker to the final result. And then I turned the Dehancer node off and on to see the results of the film emulation. The last thing I did was to create a mask around the lower left corner of the frame and animate it throughout the sequence so that I could darken that area. And with that, I was finished with this shot. Let's fast forward through the first couple of nodes of this next shot, as I did the same kind of adjustments with lift, gamma, gain, highlights, contrast, and HSV as the shot before, as how I used Dehancer is the focus of this video. Once again, it's time for Dehancer Pro. Of course, first I selected the Kodak Color Plus 200 stock, but then I selected the Kodak 2383 print film and enabled analog range limiter. And I raised color density and slightly lowered the saturation. Like before with the other shot, I raised the exposure to compensate for the darkness. Then came film compression, and I set it to maximum strength. Next, I lowered the contrast, and I adjusted the push-pull to the far right. I added a little red to the color head for this shot. Finally, I added film grain, halation, bloom, and film breath, and left them all on their default setting. And this is what you get. Once again, I will fast forward through the first few nodes. The same things happened with the basic and HSV nodes. However, I added a node with a highly feathered mask to slightly darken the environment around me to bring myself out, essentially making a subtle imaginary spotlight around myself. And then I added the node for Dehancer Pro. First, I selected the DJI Mavic Air setting and then selected the Kodak Color Plus 200 stock. Then I dragged the push-pull to the far right. Next, I lowered the contrast. Then I lowered the black point just a little with the expand tab. And then I enabled film compression and maxed it out. Then I selected the Kodak 2383 print film, raised the exposure to compensate, and then I raised the color density to taste and slightly lowered the saturation. Then I added some red to the color head, and then film grain, and I left it at its default, and then halation, and I left it at its default, and film bloom, and also at its default. And then I added film breath, and then finally I added one more node to shift the blue in the background back towards the purple. And that is it for this shot. Gate weave results in an organic shake effect. In fact, it can be used instead of the wiggle expression from After Effects for motion graphics purposes. And real quickly, let me demonstrate the creative possibilities. This is an old picture of New York. This is a picture of New York with gate weave. And let's breathe some extra life with film damage. And let's add more character with a vignette. And then we can make it grungier with an overscan. Okay, DaVinci Resolve has halation, which I have used many times. And you can simulate gate weave with camera shake. And you can simulate film breath with flicker. And there is a good array of film grain options. However, with Dehancer's unique film stock and film print options, superior grain and film compression, Dehancer stands alone. First, the price. I could not afford this product at almost $500. Then again, had I not spent the last 3 years making YouTube videos, and I worked a little more and saved up, maybe. But then again, if I had not been making YouTube videos, I would not even be interested in this product. And then again, I did make all those videos, and I was fortunate enough to receive this product in exchange for a video about it. So here it is. If you can afford it and have not already bought it and like what you see, buy it. And, well, please use my code BLESSINGS for a 10% discount. And you will be supporting me, my channel, and Dehancer. And beyond that, you will be supporting film emulation. After all, film emulation is the next best thing after film itself. And it is a lot cheaper than film. Let's be real. Second, you get a plethora of highly nuanced effects that seamlessly integrate with your footage. The grain integrates with your image unlike any overlay could. The halation and bloom are more natural looking than the DaVinci Resolve halation. But it really is the film stock and film print options that definitely surpass what you can do in DaVinci Resolve. It boils down to this: if you can't afford film, Dehancer Pro is the next best thing. And it doesn't stop at video. It has motion graphics too. You can skip the vintage film overlay downloads and generate your own with Dehancer. You can skip the wiggle effect in After Effects. I say these things because these are ways I intend to be using Dehancer in my own work. Dehancer can do elegance. Dehancer can do grunge. Dehancer opens up a whole new world. That is it for this video, but you can expect 2 more coming soon. One for GoPro 7 footage and one for DJI Mavic Air 2 drone footage. And with that, blessings.